I'm going to talk about serial numbers and differences in these cars that you can spot, know kind of what year they are, and kind of narrow them down. Tell you where serial numbers can be found, and with changes in engine, etc. Anyway, I don't have a Model 1 in here, but on a Model 1, the serial number was on the motor plate. In a lot of cases, it was the motor number, the serial number on the motor. If Midget Motors built it, they would have designated their own number, own serial number, and not use the motor number. So, that's about all we know about them. There's only been about 20 or so found, and so about all those meet that criteria. On a Model 2, I don't have a Model 2, but the Club Special will show you. On a Model 2, if you find a Model 2, you got to get the seat back out of the way, and about in this area right here, running all the way across, right above that Z or place right there, there would be a round bar. That was a part of the frame that held all the car together. About right in here, behind the seat, stamped kind of toply or a little bit forward, would have been the serial numbers of the car. From what I can figure, and all the serial numbers we found, then like I say, Midget Motors or Claude and Dale, they had their own system, and really we ain't hardly quite figured it out on the early ones. And the last numbers on the serial numbers really, we think, are double of what the production was, but in some cases it's still too many cars. So we don't really know what they were doing. So anyway, on the early Model 2s, the number could be a 5 for a 51, or a 6 for a 52, or 7 for a 53, or 8 for a 54, and they even can have V's in front of them. So, and then I think, if I ain't mistaken, the 56 had a VS. But some of the very early King Midgets, the Model 2s, they had a pull starter on the driver's side, and it was like a lawnmower pull starter, and it stuck right here. And you pulled it here, and it had a cable that run over there and backside, and it had a ratcheting mechanism on the front of the crank. And when you pulled that pulled that ratchet and turned that motor. That was the very first ones, and the very first ones didn't have a transmission. They had a jack shaft and forward only. And then I think about late 52, early 53, they come out with a transmission, and it was optional. You could still do just a jack shaft and push the little car around because it only weighed 300 pounds. Or they say 500 pounds. So, like I say, those numbers are a little sketchy, but we can take the numbers that we get and we can put them into the system, and it can give us, and we can get pretty close to the month it was built. All right, on a Model 3, let's talk about that. Mine's 62. On the 57 and 8s, the doors were wood, and the trunk lid was different than the trunk lids from 59 on. The trunk lid was steel, and it laid over the fender well, or over the fenders about that far. So it kind of laid over there on both sides, and it was steel, a little heavier. So in 59, they changed to the aluminum trunk lid that fits flush with the fender lip, and they went to this style door, which is aluminum. Saved a little weight, made you feel like you had a little more horsepower. On the engine sizes, of course, the Model 1 was a 6 Wisconsin or a 3.5 Clinton. It's according to what you wanted to spend. On the Model 2s, they started out with 7.5 horsepower, and 53 or 54, they went to 8.5 horsepower. Then in 57, they went to a 9.25 horsepower Wisconsin. They run that 9.25 horsepower until 1965. Then they went to a Kohler 12 horsepower, and they run that until Midget Motors did not exist. On the 57 through 60s, the VIN number will start with an S. It'll say S57 or S58, whatever year your car is. If it's 57, say S57 and 4 more numbers. Because they were 6 volt. Then in 61, they went to 12 volt. They changed the letter to a T. T61 or T62. Now, then when in 66, when they went to a Kohler engine, they changed that T to a K to designate the Kohler engine. Then in 69, early 69, when they went bankrupt, Vernon Eads took it over and he did some cars, and his wife's maiden name was Barthman. So some of the later model 69s would have a B69, B for Barthman. Also in the serial numbers, you will sometimes find or hear about that there's an X in the serial number. The X is a designation of a galvanized steel body. And a lot of times, if it's a galvanized steel body, and if it's original paint, some of the paint will be gone because the prep wasn't great back then, and sometimes it'd flake off. But a lot of places that, if you lived in Alaska or in a rainy region and you wanted something that wouldn't rust so bad, you would ask for a galvanized body, and they would designate that with an X. So, to find a serial number on a Model 3, some of your early ones, like your 57s and 8s, the serial number was on the mount for the engine. And I have seen them right here. Let me get my hand out of the way. I've seen them right in that area, right there. And it'd be stamped right on the back side of that round circle. And it'd be like an S57. But then they started putting them on the frame rail just behind this mount. And I fixed this where we could see it. Mine is a T62. So right there is my serial number. T62, 5, and whatever the other 3 numbers are. If it's a T, it's a 12 volt. If it's a K, it's a Kohler. If it's an S, it's a 6 volt. So you can get within a few years of what it really is if you know those first letters. So, all your serial numbers there, and you have to rub them sometimes, maybe sometimes sand them, sometimes wet them. I just wetted mine because I couldn't read it, so that I could get it where you could see it. So, sometimes too, rust has hit it hard enough that the first letter or the numbers will be a little goofy. So, there's other little telltale signs to tell you what year your car is that you're looking at. Just remember a Wisconsin engine, 6 volt Wisconsin, 57 to 60. And that how to know that? The Wisconsin 6 volt will have a starter, a real starter on it. It'll be molded to the side of the engine. And it'll have a little bitty generator at the back of the engine running off the pulley right on the end where the belt clutches are. When it's 12 volt, there's no starter. There's embosses there that could be tapped, but they did not. And then you have a starter generator, a Delco starter generator that run the engine. So 61 to 65 is what used the 12 volt Kohler or Wisconsin engine. And then of course Kohler 66 through 69. And that'll get you within 3 or 4 years of what it actually is. And